Welcome to Culture Yapfest, an unserious podcast for serious fans. I'm Skullie, a fandom girly who loves to chat her shit.
And I'm Earth, a cosplayer who spends too much time in the library. And let's get yapping.
Let's get yapping. I have so much that I want to talk about today. We need to talk
Yes.
about Luigi Mangione. I don't even really know where to start with this because there's so many aspects of this. Like, we could talk about the memes, we could talk about how this is like, we talked about this last episode, but like we're so close to class consciousness and like both sides of the political spectrum like coming together and rallying to free this man, and how I didn't see him, I didn't see nothing, I didn't see nothing. I have so many thoughts because I think he in particular, there's so much about him that, and so many aspects to him that are revered in America and in American culture.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
he's this like conventionally attractive, physically fit, Ivy League
Hmm.
graduate. Like
Yeah.
his friends have come like sort of out of the woodwork, not only on like social media, posting videos of him like just being a really good friend, talking to media outlets and basically being like, yeah, like he was a really good guy and the medical system fucked him over. Like him being
Mm.
this almost like, and again, I'm sort of knocking on wood here, like near perfect specimen for the working class to rally behind.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because like you see, conservatives and pro-gun people try to use the rhetoric that they usually use around gun violence, and it's not working this time,
Yeah.
partially due to like the circumstances of what happened and also due to like who Luigi Mangione is as a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's fascinating. What a
I
what a historical thing.
Very much so. And like historical 100%. And then also like people are getting really funny with it.
Yeah.
Like the thirst traps that have come out. Have you seen some of these thirst traps of like,
Yes.
so the thirst trap's coming out, the like Mama I'm in Love with a Criminal by Britney Spears running rampant. And then his lawyer, Thomas Dickey,
Yeah.
who also is very likable, very, very charming, very charismatic, and also very funny. I don't know if he's Italian, but he gives like very like he reminds me of like my one of my uncles. Like he reminds me of like my
Yeah.
Italian family of being very blunt, very
Mhm.
straightforward,
Yes.
but having that like charisma to kind of like soften the bluntness in like the perfect way. There was
Yeah.
one interviewer who asked him a question, and it was a really very clearly a pointed question that was trying to push a specific narrative that like Luigi was like not in the right mind, like that he was like some psychopath or something. Essentially it boiled down to like, how is your client feeling after the arrest? Is he like feeling a certain way? It was very pointed. I don't remember the exact wording.
Mhm.
But he responded as like, well, like he's just been arrested as a suspect in a murder. Use your common sense. How do you think he feels? Like it was so, and I was like, yeah, like
Yeah.
obviously, like it was so refreshing, especially like since the way the media has been framing this of trying to make us feel bad for Brian Thompson and being like, a man has been murdered. A family man has been murdered. It's like, okay, first of all, you don't know any of that. If he was a family man, he could have been a piece of shit father. You don't fucking know. Second of all, like, this is a system that is violent. This is a system that is murder.
Yeah.
How,
Mhm.
like, and I've seen working class people as well who have, like, gotten on their soapbox and been like, murder's not okay in any capacity. And I'm like, okay, cool, fine. That's how you feel. You don't get to say shit until you've made a video, a TikTok video about every single fucking family that has been killed because of his policies been put down, because of every
Right.
healthcare policy that has been put down. Either families that
Right.
have like willingly denied care because they didn't want to burden their family with medical debt, or they were denied care because the company didn't want to shell out the fucking money. I don't want to see you talk shit about how murder is never okay and how violence is never
Right.
the answer until you've made a video about every single one of those fucking families. Go fuck yourself. Get off your fucking high horse. You are full of fucking shit. Just
Yeah.
because he didn't pull the trigger, he still fucking murdered those people. He signed a goddamn
Mhm.
paper that led to their
He
death.
signed every piece of paperwork that instituted policy changes around denying people the claims to their medical care that
Yeah.
they need to live, to survive.
Yeah.
Um, policy is violence, and part of the reason why policy is so effective as violence is because it's obfuscated. It's
Mhm.
not as obvious as some dude 3D printing a gun and shooting another guy in the street.
Right.
You know, it happens every day, slowly and more painfully than you could possibly ever imagine.
Yeah.
And it's hard for us to like see that in the same way because it's not sensationalized,
Right.
and we're sort of used to it, you know, like we're used to this being the reality of our country, that people have to like set up GoFundMe's to fund their medical care.
Yeah.
That's wrong. That's wrong, and it's fucked up,
Yeah.
and we shouldn't have to live in that reality. And shitty people like I can't even remember I don't remember his name. I remember Luigi Mangione's name. I don't remember the name of this fucking CEO who got murked.
Brian Thompson
And
is
I
his
feel like
name, but yeah.
Brian Thompson. All right. So,
The most forgettable fucking name
uh,
you can.
yeah, all this to say that there's a reason why it feels to some people more, arresting
Mm,
to, use this sort of silly little word there to, have a man shot in broad daylight than it does to have people killed slowly every day by our fucked up healthcare system.
yeah. And it's like, and
Yeah.
the other thing that frustrates me is the way that people talk about this. They act like we haven't been protesting and we haven't been shouting to have better healthcare
Right.
for years, which we have.
Yeah.
The truth is, it just hasn't fucking worked. So like, you have these reporters in particular getting on their high horse and being like, well, don't get mad at the individual, get mad at the system. And like, we have been mad at the system. We've been mad about the
Yeah.
system. We've been shouting for you to change the system. Neither the Democratic
Yep.
nor the Republican Party has run on any sort of healthcare plan for the past few years. Like, nothing has happened. Policy hasn't been changing. And when like policy doesn't change, again, I'm not condoning violence, but this is what happens.
This is what happens. This is
Because
the
this
the
is the only
natural consequence.
because truthfully, the peaceful protesting hasn't worked. It
Right.
hasn't worked. So what do you expect? Say what you will about Americans, they fucking go for it sometimes, man. Like they get pissed. You've built this country of very proud people, and you have a system that doesn't support them
Mhm.
and has continued
Yeah.
to kill them. Like I don't.
Right.
How can you
And when you
expect
look
anything
at
less?
world history, right? When you look at the history of the world and of societies where, the 1% in power is truly taking the most egregious advantage of the rest of, the people riot. There's a lot of parallels of what's happening right now to what happened during the French Revolution. There are a lot of very, very silly, goofy, funny memes about this. One of the best ones I saw was a guy sort of dressed up in like 1700s garb saying,
Love.
maybe we should make more Bridgerton to distract you all and think that the upper classes are like shiny. We have like fun things that you want to explore, and like don't look over here at all the
Oh my
exploitation that we're
god.
doing. Look at the fancy costumes on TV. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Unfortunately, he's very right. I wanted to talk about that because I everybody has a lot of feelings. It's being covered an absurd amount, and I think, well, I say
Mhm.
that, but it's also the correct amount because this is I think a very important time.
Big deal. Big deal.
Yeah. How do you feel about the drones in New Jersey? Did you hear about this?
I have not heard about this. I've also been a little bit under a rock for the past week because it's been finals. But tell me about these
Right.
drones.
Okay, so these drones, they're like 6 foot wide, massive drones that have started appearing in New Jersey. The federal government has like gathered a press conference with local officials and to try to explain what they know about these drones. And apparently they don't know anything. And to the point where like
Hmm.
one official just walked out because he was like, I was in there for 6 hours and they didn't give us a single answer as to what they thought these were. They didn't claim that they were from the government. But also,
Weird.
very weird. Very, very weird. And again, I want to like prevent the tinfoil hat things from going on, but also let's look at our own history, our own very recent history. Do we all remember the weather balloon that managed to make its way
Yeah.
from Canada into the US? A weather
This is a
balloon.
Chinese spy balloon,
It,
right?
apparently,
Is this the same one?
apparently a Chinese spy balloon or whatever. It was
Right.
called a weather balloon or whatever, which again, it could have been a Chinese spy balloon, who knows? But it came in
Yeah.
from Canada, and was claimed to be a weather balloon, shot down immediately on site. One of these. Apparently, there's multiple of these drones, which are 6 foot wide, like I said, enormous. They are unsettling civilians. They're like people have said that they're like this is
Mm.
weird, and the government doesn't seem to be worried about it at all and hasn't given any information. Which I think it's quite clear if the government doesn't isn't worried by it and isn't giving any more information, it's probably the fucking government.
It's probably the government. Yeah. That
So
seems to be a logical conclusion.
right,
Yeah. How weird.
very very weird. So anyway, that has been a recent development, and everyone's like, yeah, with people getting very clearly uniting and going against the systems in place in this country,
Mm.
it would make sense that the government would want to do either more like mass surveillance, more or something like that, or just
Mhm.
intimidation. You know, we've seen with like Brianna Boston, like her over the phone saying some not so nice things to a healthcare insurance worker, and getting 15 years
Hmm.
in prison. Like,
Hmm.
did you hear about this, Brianna Boston?
Nope.
Okay. So essentially,
Nope.
essentially, what she said over the phone, she was
Also,
a
who is Brianna Boston?
she's a Florida woman, a mother of 3,
Okay.
and
Okay. Florida.
she was charged with threatening a health insurance company by saying delayed, denied, depose, you guys are next after her claim was denied.
Oh, okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. Yep.
After her
Mhm.
claim was denied, delayed, denied, depose, you people are next. Again,
Yep.
mother of 3, she has no priors, not even a traffic ticket. She doesn't even have a
Yeah.
gun in her house. She doesn't even own a gun.
Yeah.
And she was charged, which again seems very much like some kind of intimidation tactic to get people to shut the fuck up and not be mad about this anymore. Because again, wouldn't that be protected under free speech? All these things, blah blah blah. No,
Yeah.
apparently not.
Mm.
Um,
No, I mean it's a complicated legal gray area, right?
right.
Because on the one hand, free speech is free speech, and on the other hand, you have to have provisions in the law that differentiate free speech from, targeted threats.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how that could be taken as a targeted threat. Um but like this is the playground that now the lawyers get to play in,
Right.
right? They get to decide what has precedent, like what has precedence as, hate speech is threatening and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're sort of like living in a, post CEO assassination world, does that change the precedent?
Right. And
um
and
I
and
come from a whole family of lawyers, so all this policy shit is very, baked into the way that I approach these sorts of conversations.
yeah, and
um
a lot of people were
yeah.
pointing out that like, you know, okay, well, she said this to a health insurance worker. What
Right.
about all of the women and all of the people that have called the police for, stalkers, domestic
Mhm.
violence, where they have real credible reports and evidence of threats to their life, and police don't listen,
Yep.
and they don't listen to, so they don't pay attention to the, there was one woman who talked about how she was threatened by her boyfriend, and he kept sending pictures of the wall of guns that he had that he was going to kill her with. And that wasn't
Yep.
evidence enough for them to do anything about it.
Mhm.
Where essentially
Mhm.
the attitude with police, with law enforcement, is that call us when something happens. Call us when something actually
Right.
happens. So we have that policy for regular people, but we don't have this policy for, people that work in health insurance, these
Hmm.
executives and such.
Yeah,
Like,
that's interesting.
really interesting stuff happening.
It is interesting. We're like rethinking violence as
Hmm.
a society and what counts as a violent threat. And under the law, how our laws codify what counts as a violent threat to what kinds of populations of people,
Right.
because the
Who is
laws do
protected?
encode those things, who is protected and
Yeah.
who is not. And part of the work of people who do legal justice work is to fix the laws so that they protect everybody, because that should be the goal, right?
Hmm.
um but they don't always. And the domestic violence thing is a particularly frustrating instance of this. Yeah, sucks.
Yeah.
Sucks big time. There's not really much else to say about it other than that.
Yeah. That case in particular, and the discussion around protecting what kinds of people, what groups of people,
Mhm.
has, I think, even as, Luigi and Mangione has been sent to, I think they're sending him to Rikers, which is also terrifying.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, so with all this happening, we're like, we probably won't get a ton of updates on this for a little bit. This has still sort of kept this conversation alive. And it sucks that this woman is
Yeah,
being punished so severely. 15 years is insane.
yeah.
Like for a verbal threat with no credible like evidence that she was ever going to actually follow through with this. It's decidedly unjust in my opinion. Um,
Yep,
but yeah.
I agree.
What have you been up to? How have you I know you've been doing like finals and stuff. Have things kind of calmed down? Are you sort of being able to enjoy the
Things
holiday season a little bit?
things are on the they're like en route to calming down.
Mm,
This upcoming week is going to be my final week of like being at work before I take time off for the holidays, which
nice.
is my favorite time of year cuz nobody can bother me.
Ugh, you
It's
gonna
the
read your
only time of year when
fanfics?
no one can bother me. I'm going to read my fan
Yay!
fiction
Oh, I'm so glad.
in peace and quiet.
Oh,
So we're on the downswing, and also, going to festive parties and hanging out with people, and that feels nice. It's nice to celebrate being done with what has been like there's really no other way to describe my semester than chaotic.
mm.
Uh do not ever, if you can avoid it, write a master's thesis and apply to PhD programs at the same time. uh it's not good for your health.
No.
And this is what I did, and I'm
Oh,
glad I did it because now it's done. Mostly the thesis is not done. The thesis is half done, but the applications are done. And anyway, I'm just very, very tired,
yeah.
and a little bit living under a rock. But the thing that I want to yap about a little bit in this opening segment, we touched on this a little bit at the end of last week's episode. But we were yapping about so many other different, more important, more timely things.
Yeah.
Now I really want to talk a little bit about the TikTok ban.
Please
Just a
do.
little eensy weensy bit. Um, because we're starting to get more information that makes it look like the TikTok app is going to be removed from the App Store on January 19th. And this is information from authoritative sources. V. Spahar from Under the Desk News posted, I think, maybe it was last night or the night before, a sort of explainer about why they think we're going to have to say goodbye to TikTok in the next couple of months. And this is a pretty emotional revelation for a lot of people who rely on TikTok for so many different things, whether that's, a sense of community, knowing what's going on in the world, distraction from, the hard stuff of everyday life. And as a platform, it functions pretty uniquely. There is not really a competitor in the market that will make up for it once it's gone. So if you're feeling some type of way about that, I just want you to know that I'm right there with you. TikTok has a lot of emotional significance for me. It's how I got my start as a cosplayer and fandom creator. I wouldn't have been able to do that if it hadn't been for TikTok. Skullie and I met on TikTok.
Yeah, we wouldn't have met.
And like so many, friends and important people in my life have come into my life through my engagement on TikTok. So
Mm.
it's a hard thing to process that, this app might disappear. And it's not going to happen overnight, right? Like what will happen is they'll remove it from the App Store, and eventually, we're going to get to the point where TikTok is going to require us to either update the app or it's just going to stop working. There will be a couple of months where Americans will sort of be piecemealing it together, but then, eventually the software, we won't be able to keep up, and it will go dark. And that's what's going to happen. So, for those of us who are TikTok creators, you were trying to think of alternatives. Vispahar Under the Desk News has also sort of posted an explainer of what they're doing to navigate their content to other platforms, how they're revising their content strategy so that they can reach other audiences on YouTube and Instagram. For me personally, what I will be doing is archiving all of my Mama Ray video content on my YouTube channel, which currently doesn't have a whole lot going on because I haven't used it because I haven't had to. But you know, that's what it's gonna be. It's gonna be an archive for all of my old content, so that will still be there because I know it's important to a lot of people. And new content for the time being is going to be released through Instagram and maybe on YouTube. We'll see. Grad school is busy and I'm tired, so I don't super duper have the spoons to like come up with a great shiny new content strategy. But I just want, you know, people to know that if you're listening to this and you follow me and you know have an emotional investment in my content, it's not going anywhere. I am in the process of moving pretty much all of it to YouTube. So it will be there if you want to, you know, go visit with Mama Ray and friends.
I love
Skullie,
that.
how do you feel about this TikTok
Yeah,
ban?
I mean, I'm angry as fuck. I think like this whole idea that TikTok is a threat to our society is complete fucking bullshit because you have literal
Yes.
Nazis on Twitter and you have literal porn on Twitter. It's like, protect the children. Protect the children from what, bitch? Protect the children
Right.
from what, bitch? You're so fucking full of it. So I think that's a crock of shit. First of all, first and
Yep, you're
foremost.
right. It is a
Anger,
crock of shit.
anger first.
Yeah.
Second, I think like for me, I am someone who has spent multiple years cultivating my content on all of my platforms. Of course, I have very different content on all my different platforms because I hate myself and I need to do as much as possible and everything and stress myself out. But this is all to say, this is all to say in terms of like monetary stuff, because I think people are talking about how like, oh, content creators now have to get jobs. It's like, well, it's like, okay, first of all, I already work a job, so
Mm,
go fuck yourself. Second of all,
period.
TikTok isn't even where I personally make the most amount of my like money, my content from my content. It's YouTube. YouTube is a much more lucrative platform in terms of like monetary. So on YouTube, I'm doing fine. TikTok is like my fun money, but it does suck because TikTok, and I say this as a social media manager, as someone who does this for her job. TikTok
Mm-hmm.
has been, in the past 5 or 6 years, the best and fastest platform to grow a following. The algorithm, people talk about the TikTok algorithm all the time. It is a very tailored algorithm, and the way that it works, it's so wonderful, is that it gives you the stuff that based on what you interact with versus Instagram, which gives you the stuff that is paid like monetarily, like it's usually like sponsored shit. That's why we see sponsored content everywhere, and the stuff that is most popular. And YouTube as well, it's the stuff that gets the most views that is sent your way. It's not necessarily the stuff that is catered specifically to you. So like for example on TikTok, I will see really niche videos that have like 10 likes, 100 likes, 1,000 likes. And occasionally I'll get like a super viral video on my page, but most of the time it's very catered, very niche content. So it's a lot of like witchy content, a lot of fandom content, a lot of queer content, a lot of intersectional content, feminist content. Like that's the stuff that I like to see the most. So that's the stuff that's fed to my page. TikTok is a platform where I most often see creators of color, queer creators. And
Yep.
of course, there's shadow banning as well on TikTok. I'm not going to pretend like it's a perfect utopia platform because it's not. But it's so much more easy for creators in marginalized communities to be visible on TikTok than it is on other platforms. That's just a fact. That's just a fact.
Yep.
And while Twitter is very much alt-right, YouTube and Instagram are kind of more centrist, right-leaning. Not quite like right, but they are definitely more centrist. Two things could happen because obviously a lot of creators are looking for ways to expand their platforms. So either they will go to Instagram and YouTube, flood the platform with content, and they will be able to flourish and essentially revitalize those platforms, which is what I'm hoping will happen. I'm hoping that this rush of queer creators, of trans creators, of Black POC creators, Indigenous creators, I'm hoping that this them moving to Instagram and them moving to YouTube will flood these platforms with more of the content that I like and I identify with, and I think more people should see, and will revitalize those platforms. Will that happen? I don't know. I don't know if those people will be
Yeah.
posting and then it'll get flushed out or it won't get promoted by the algorithm, but if you have a creator that you really love and you really want to follow and you really want to keep up with, follow them on other platforms because the only way you're going
Yep.
to be able to see their content is if you migrate with them. You need to be there and like, actually be a part of that community in order for that content to survive. Because like content takes time. As much as we don't like to admit it in society, content takes effort. It's hard to make content that people really like to watch. And again, for me, like I'll be fine. Earth will be fine. We make content because we like to do it and it is fun for us. But there are people that can't work, like physically can't work regular 9 to 5s that rely on TikTok for income. That there are small businesses. Even people that
Yep.
are like single mothers that just like they make like get ready with me TikToks or they do these little things that are like they are able to provide for their kids in a way that allows them to be there for them. Like so many stories. Is it how many people on TikTok, like probably millions at this point, like in America that like
It's so many.
make money and are able to support themselves in a time where, and this is the other thing that is wild to me that that our government would fucking do this because I know the American government is evil, but I never expected this. Where like in a time where people are struggling to like pay for basic necessities, groceries, rent, you're taking away another revenue source from the majority of the working class. What the fuck is wrong with you? You guys are evil. You guys are so evil for doing
Yeah.
this. For
So
me,
I
like,
just Googled it
yeah,
because I saw this statistic last night and it was sort of staggering to me, but the TikTok ban in the US is projected to result in a loss of approximately $24.2 billion to
yeah,
the US GDP.
that doesn't surprise me.
Because of the economic impact of the platform. And there's so much more to like analyze here. The social impact of the platform, the way that the platform uniquely provides affordances for people to organize and for people to engage in activist work. The
Yeah,
fact that we all know what is going on in Palestine because of TikTok and because of the Palestinian creators who have found ways to access TikTok to make sure that their voices get heard. It's things like that. The thing about the Meta platforms and about YouTube is that they're so embroiled in like American neoliberal corporate
yes,
interests.
yes.
That I doubt very much they will try to replicate that kind of um, algorithm. And this is my tinfoil hat. Like I will own that this is my tinfoil hat. But
Go
I
for it.
think part of the reason why um, American governing institutions said like fuck you to TikTok is because they recognize the power of TikTok platform for it is to spread information
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
for good or for bad, and to organize and bring together young people around big emotional cultural moments.
Hmm.
And that is scary
Yep.
to governing organizations. It represents sort of like a loss of control. And again, like I haven't done the research on this, so I'm gonna claim that it's a little bit of a tinfoil hat theory, but I do kind of think that that's part of the reason that we're seeing TikTok get banned. I really, really do.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
And it's a
Yeah,
shame.
yeah.
It's a shame.
I think you're absolutely right. And like this is another sort of like look behind the curtain for anyone interested in like content and creators. The way that things are seen on TikTok versus the way that things are seen on YouTube are very, very different. Very vastly different. So for example, with YouTube, I'll post a YouTube video about I have a video here about like Wanda. I have a video about like the assassination of
Ooh.
Wanda Maximoff's character. Love Wanda. I made that video after WandaVision came out, or after the Multiverse of Madness came out. I got a huge bump in views on that video in particular after Agatha All Along came out. Now, I came out with that video years
Yep.
ago. Like I haven't talked about Marvel stuff in a while. But every time Wanda or something related to Wanda comes up in the MCU, I get views on that video. TikTok does not work that way. And TikTok works with very recent, very relevant content where you don't really get those long-term views that you get on YouTube. With TikTok, you post it, and it's usually within the first few days. You get a ton of traction, you get a ton of views, and then it tapers off, which means it's really, really good at spreading around current content very quickly and spreading around viral content very quickly. That's why trends I think have happened like come and go so fast because like the way the algorithm on
Mhm.
TikTok is very efficient with seeing, hey, who likes this right now, spreading it to as many people as possible, and then having it die out. And again, there's
Yeah.
positives and negatives to that, but in terms of spreading information, gathering, organizing, it's incredibly effective. Like it is, and
Yep.
I don't know if I'm able to like fully conceptualize like this for you guys because like it is it's crazy how this works. Like
Yeah.
it spreads so fast to
Yeah.
everyone.
It does virality really, really well. And virality is scary to governing organizations and a little bit for good reason. Like I kind of understand
Yeah, I mean
because,
misinformation
just
also spreads
as
really quickly,
quickly
like
misinformation is hyper viral.
yeah,
But and that doesn't mean that there's not misinformation all over X
every
and
single platform.
Instagram and Meta. Like it's all over everywhere. But I just think that TikTok has really been shown to promote organizing, all kinds of political organizing in a way that maybe the other social media platforms haven't, and that's like terrifying to the government.
Yeah, 100%. In
Yeah.
terms of my content, I'm gonna keep doing fandom content on this platform, which is kind of frustrating because my TikTok handle is Happy Pancake and this is Skullie by the Sea. So it's a completely different name. But I'm posting on my Happy Pancake channel as well, and that's going to be like current event stuff and things that I'm pissed about, and debunking misinformation and things like that. So those are my two separate platforms. I fucking hate Instagram. I've tried to like recalibrate my algorithm on Instagram, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So like I don't foresee myself posting regularly on Instagram. Uh, I just don't see the fucking point. I did get a
Yeah.
Lemonade, which is like apparently like owned by the same like company as TikTok or something.
Right.
So I transferred like all of my TikTok data over to Lemonade. So I'm on Lemonade, and it's actually really cute. I think it's like a better Instagram because like
Hmm.
like I've seen more content from like marginalized groups there, which is great. I've seen like indigenous content. I've seen a POC content as well. I've seen a lot of witchy content there.
Yeah.
Not as much fandom content, so I think I'm gonna have to find a space on YouTube for like good fandom content to consume. Also like Tumblr, like I'm on
Yeah.
Tumblr as well, so like that is, big in
Mhm.
fandom content, always has been. So I think that's probably gonna be like my social media breakdown is like fandom content on Tumblr and like maybe YouTube, and then political content on like YouTube and I don't know. I'm holding out hope
Yeah.
that people just like flood these platforms with better content because a lot of the things that I watch on YouTube right now are like really long deep dives or
Yeah.
I'll watch like the occasional like fan edit here and there. But that's like pretty much it in terms of like what I consume on YouTube, you know? So, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. YouTube really has a rep for being like a long form content platform,
Right.
which is great for us in this podcast, which is long,
Sure.
but not so good for the little bite size, the little num you
Yeah.
know?
The YouTube Shorts
Uh,
algorithm is garbage.
sucks. Really, really sucks. It's
It's
so
so bad.
bad.
It's so bad, and I
Oh
wish it was
man.
better, and I don't wanna be like I so badly want it to be good because I want my circus and peanuts, but, like, it
Yeah.
is I can't fucking lie and be like, "Oh, yeah, YouTube Shorts is gonna save us," because it's in its current state, it's not. Like, in its current state,
Yeah.
I only interact with, like, queer, POC and leftist creators. I still get alt-right shit on my fucking YouTube Shorts, and that's,
Yep.
like, I shouldn't be
Same with
getting that.
Instagram Reels.
Same with Reels.
It's
Again,
crazy.
it's so bad. I'm like, "Why are you showing," and
Yeah.
I always put, like, "Not interested, don't recommend channel, don't show me this," and every single time I'll still get, like it's so annoying.
That's
So,
ironic. It's so ironic
yeah.
that that we have both personally observed. that the
Mhm.
proliferation of alt-right content is worse on the American-owned platforms.
Wow, I'm certainly shocked. Yeah, what a fucking
I
revelation
think
that is,
that's
like,
fascinating.
oh
I
my
think that's
god.
very interesting.
It's so for me, I think it's so purposeful because 'cause you're yeah, corporate neoliberal. I was like, "That's it."
Yep.
Anyway, sorry, this is a depressing opener. It's gonna get better, kids. We're gonna talk about
It is.
spirituality.
It's gonna get better.
It's gonna get better, it's gonna be fine, and we're gonna talk this is actually probably pretty good because if you are someone who is stressed or just, like, having a fucking hard time with all this, spirituality and centering yourself and finding peace and guidance during this time, I think is really helpful and has been helpful for me.
This is a little research deep dive that I did, inspired by a conversation that Skullie and I were having, God, weeks ago at this point, about like how weird the holiday season is for a lot of people. Because like we're in this area within this era where lots of folks who grew up or like were brought up in kind of monotheistic Abrahamic religious traditions are kind of unsubscribing from that as their way of life and the place where they access, you know, spirituality and cultural connection. And this is something that we both really resonated with. Skullie has talked a little bit on the pod about her sort of hybrid spiritual tradition. I haven't talked about it as much, but I was brought up in a interfaith hybrid spiritual household. So this is always sort of something that has been very clear to me. It was made very clear to me as a child. And it's kind of nice to explore. Oh, there's a kitty here about to cause mischief. I'm gonna put you on my lap, little kitty.
Mischievous
Um,
kitty.
mischievous kitty. No, baby, don't climb on the computer. Oh my God. Yeah, have a sit. Have a sit. We're gonna do a podcast Christmas. No, we're gonna cause problems. Okay.
Is your kitty bigoted?
Um,
Are they are they trying to keep us from
no.
talking about this?
She's just are we having a war on Christmas, Sabrina? Is that what's happening?
Sabrina! Sabrina, why?
No. Sabrina just wants herself to be the object of worship at all times.
So, I mean, in a way, monotheistic, but just her.
She would like us all to worship her. So anyway, I did a little research deep dive on like the origins of Christmas because I feel like this is something that people might not know about a lot because when we think about Christmas as a cultural artifact, we think of it as if it has always been the way it is now, and that's actually not the case. First of all, the Romans invented Christmas in part to co-opt the pagan holiday of Saturnalia, which is the celebration of the days getting longer after the winter solstice. So in our contemporary Christmas traditions, we do things like light candles, we drink to people's health, we go caroling. Those are all Saturnalia things that the Romans kind of folded into Christian tradition. One of the reasons that December 25th might have been picked as the day of Jesus's birth was sort of as a Christianizing of Dies Solis Invicti, which means Day of the Birth of the Unconquered Sun, spelled S-U-N, which is a popular holiday in the Roman Empire that celebrated the winter solstice as a symbol of the resurgence of the sun. And the casting away of winter and the heralding of the, you know, rebirth of spring and summer that were coming. And so, you know, at its very inception, we see Christmas as a holiday tradition that arises to enfold lots of different spiritual practices under sort of like a concerted umbrella of power, which is a thing that we see in a lot of world religions, particularly religions that proselytize and try to sort of spread their word. A fun fact, actually, is that the Puritans who founded America wanted to ban Christmas because they thought that it was too sort of Catholic because it's not in the Bible and they thought that it shouldn't be observed. So they were sort of like radical Protestants. And so it's kind of interesting that like we see all this discourse from conservatives this time of year about the
Typically
war on Christmas.
Protestants as well, like not Catholics, they're like evangelicals.
Yeah, Bible Christians, like it's evangelicals who are so committed to the word of the Bible And ironically, their sort of spiritual predecessors also waged a war on Christmas, which a lot of people don't know. Um,
That's awesome. I
so like
love that.
other Christmas traditions, yeah, I know, isn't that kind of fun? Like,
I'm
what a weird thing to think about.
I'm bringing that up to be problematic at the family gathering.
Do it, do it. Yes, yes. Instrumentalize my Christmas facts
I
to
got
cause
it. I
chaos.
gotta do it. I gotta. You know I gotta.
Oh my god. Oh, I know, I know. Oh, it's too funny. This so didn't the giving gifts thing didn't come to the English speaking world until Prince Albert, who was Lutheran in the tradition of Martin Luther, and German, married Queen Victoria. And he is also the reason that the Christmas tree came to the English speaking world and sort of replaced the Yule log in popularity in Britain and then consequently in America as well. So that's fascinating.
Prince Albert, look at him go. Go King. Go Prince.
Go
I
Prince.
go Prince. Slay. No, I remember because I remember hearing about this when I was a teenager. How like Yule and Saturnalia, those were the OG holidays. And like
Yeah.
I think like when you grow up, particularly I mean, I'll speak for myself here as someone who grew up Catholic. Particularly when you grow up Catholic, the way that religion and the way that Christianity specifically is presented to you or was presented to me was that nothing came before it. Where there was like, there was the story of Adam and Eve and there was like a bunch of like terrible shit that happened in the Old Testament that they made very clear of like if you sin, these are the bad things that happen to you. These are the bad things that happen to sinners. So Old Testament. And
Mhm.
then with New Testament, it was all shiny and new and Jesus loves everyone. Where like when we learn about Jesus and we learn about the birth of Christ, basically everything before that was the dark days. And everything before that was chaos and sinners and and there were a few of God's favorites, but by and large, the coming of Christ was basically like the new age, the sunlight. This was what we've been waiting for, right? So
Yep.
then learning that so much of Christmas and Easter, which is based on Beltane, which is another pagan holiday,
Mhm.
so much of that had already been going on and had already been happening and was essentially stolen from those practices in an effort to wipe out those groups of people in their practices um really fucked me up as a kid. And like obviously like you learn about things like the Crusades, but then like when you think of it like, oh my gosh, like this is like the way that it's framed is obviously this is horrible, but it's like, oh, it's for Christ, it's for God. We're helping these
Right.
people, we're converting these people. Like this is the idea that people have of like,
Mhm.
we're converting you from your savage ways or whatever, and this misguided moral compass, right? But then learning that like actually these people had lives, people had religions, people had spirituality, which was beautiful and was so beautiful that we stole from it and made it our own, is definitely complicated.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not my only issue that I have with Christianity and with Catholicism. And I would say that like for me, I do have things that I still practice and I do have things that still make me feel safe in terms of my Catholic upbringing, and I do think that that's okay. And it took me a really long time to like reckon with that and realize that it is okay because it is part of who I am and it is part of my family still. Like I have a lot of family members that are very deeply involved in the church and they do engage with it in a in good faith, not so to speak. But
Yeah.
I think it's okay to have that kind of messiness in there where I
Yes.
don't practice Christianity anymore. I don't go to church. I don't I don't see like God as my God, but there are good things that I could take from it. And I think the kind of like way that I live my life, if it makes me feel safe and if I'm not hurting anybody by doing it, then that's okay.
Hell
I
yeah.
I feel like I just rambled
Totally.
so much there.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You shared I feel like you shared personal experience that like resonates with a lot of people, you know? Because part of what a lot of us are trying to do as like adults is pick and choose the aspects of the, the spiritual traditions that we grew up with that fit, that make sense, and not do the other shit. And this is actually like a process that has been recognized by spiritual leaders as important to constructing, your sort of own sense of spirituality. There's a book that I really enjoy. It's this book right here. It's called The Power of Ritual.
Oh, I love
And
that.
it is by a guy named Casper ter Kuile, who is a ministry innovation fellow at the Harvard Divinity School. And he's co-founder of a startup called Sacred Design Lab. And his sort of whole argument in this book is that, like, in our world today, people are unbundling and remixing spiritual traditions to create things that are meaningful to them. And that is more valuable by far than any sort of like obligation to a tradition that doesn't fit you. He describes unbundling as the process of like separating elements of value from a single collection of offerings. So, a spiritual tradition might offer you up a platter of like many, many different offerings as like a bundle. Part of what you do is you take the stuff that is valuable to you, that enriches your life, and you don't need to use all of the offerings in that collection. Part of the goal of unbundling and of forging your own spiritual traditions is to create a sense of deep connection on several levels. Casper identifies 4, first of which is deep connection with the self. The second is deep connection with the people around you. The third is deep connection with the natural world. And the fourth is a deep connection with the transcendent, whatever that sort of feeling of connectedness to something greater than yourself is, like whatever that means to you. And for me, because I grew up in an interfaith family and my parents had sort of already done some of the work of unbundling for myself and my sister. For context, my dad comes from a Jewish family, comes from Jewish spiritual tradition, and my mom comes from a hippie atheist background where her parents were hippie artists who kind of eschewed their parents' spiritual traditions, which were Catholicism on one side and Christian Scientist on the other side.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. So my grandparents were the ones who were like, nah, fuck you and your organized religion. We don't want none of that shit.
Wow.
And then it was kind of wild. They were like true California hippies in the 60s and 70s, my grandparents.
Wow.
And then my mom sort of got from them, a healthy dose of skepticism when it comes to organized religion. But also a sense that like Christmas is a cool holiday to do as a family because it's kind of secular, but also it's nice for the pretty lights on the tree to come inside and for us to all sing songs and give each other presents and tell each other like how much we love one another. And so that was a tradition that I grew up with in a household that was pretty much largely Jewish. Most of the spiritualism that my sister and I received from our parents, sort of Jewish or Jewish adjacent. And then also Christmas is a family holiday and Easter is the holiday where you run around outside and look for candy. And so the Christian traditions that were present in my childhood, 2 generations removed from like actual belief or participation in wholesale Christian spirituality, are very decoupled and remixed. And so like, and the irony of this, right, is that like I didn't grow up with anywhere near the level of religious trauma that the sort of friends and that you have, certainly, and that like the friends that I have who grew up having to do all of that decoupling did. So like, I guess if there's a takeaway here, it's that doing your own decoupling and remixing of spirituality and making it meaningful for you isn't going to fuck up the next generation. It actually will set them up better to have a healthy relationship with spirituality. So, that's just maybe something to think about, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. It is pretty cool.
Also, well, and it also like sort of sets you up when you're raised getting input from multiple religious traditions to notice the similarities rather than the differences.
That was huge for me. Where like when like again, I grew up very like traditional Roman Catholic. We went to church every Sunday. I went to CCD. I went to Catholic school. I went to like I got confirmed. I did all the things.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that was like, so I was like, God is the true religion, Jesus is king, you know, whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and I think it was like when I didn't really learn anything about Judaism, Islam, any other major world religion until I was, I think,
Yeah.
16 or 17, because they didn't want anybody to learn about any other major religions. Because you do
Yeah.
realize the vast majority of major religions, and this is going to be reductive, so forgive me because I'm talking about all major religions. The major message is don't be a fucking asshole and
Yep.
like be a decent community member. Like that's like the
Yep.
majority of like the ethos in across every major religion. It's a lot of like don't be a piece of shit. And here's a list of things
Yep.
to not be a to not do so you're not a piece of shit, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and like, you know, which is and then like learning about that I was like, "Oh wow, these are all like so similar." And I mean, I did a lot of like deconstructing when I like was sort of first discovering like my queerness and things like that. So I had kind of already been like sort of picking apart the pieces. And with each new development, I was like, wow. I kept having those realizations of like, we are all people. We are all just people just living our lives. And so much of what we think is well, like that meme on TikTok where it's like, I've never had a unique experience. You really
Yeah.
haven't. Like, you really haven't had a unique experience. Like, so much of us have lived similar or the same lives, like even in different religions across different parts of the world. Like we are all people, we are all just trying to do our best. And even in these religions
Yeah.
that we sort of grip with this like iron vice, like there's so much crossover from who we
Yeah.
are told to hate and who we are told to convert and who we are told to change, that like getting caught in the minutia really is such a fucking waste of time. It like
Mhm.
and like I do think that like if you are like proud of your religion and you're proud of who you are and you are like these are the tenets that I stick by and this is what's important to me, that's great. That's awesome. I'm not saying that you have to piecemeal things or you have to like, you know, deconstruct or whatever. If you are like happy being like a Christian, a Protestant, you know, whatever you want, fine. Live your life. As long as you're not hurting anybody, that's fine. But it's just so interesting how we are told to not look at these things. We are told to not look at these things from a broader lens. And it is because they are so similar.
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah.
crossover.
No, this is honestly like this is at its core my favorite thing about the winter holiday season is that all of the holidays that happen during the month of December, pretty much in their entirety, are about like remembering that even though it's really dark and cold right now, the light will come back.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like at their core, all of these traditions, Yule, Saturnalia, Christmas, Hanukkah,
Yeah.
are about worshiping the light and sort of like thinking about what it means to have a symbol of hope in very dark and cold times. And I don't know if there's anything more human than that, you
Yeah.
know? It is dark and cold in the winter, and we would all just like to hang out with our little twinkly lights and our nice green plants and eat nice food and remind each other how much we love and care about each other and how much we want to show love and care to our community.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that about Christmas, and I love that about Hanukkah, and I love that I get to celebrate this year slaps because the first night of Hanukkah falls on Christmas Day. So we get double
Oh.
holiday, which is my
Woo.
favorite thing. This doesn't happen every year because the Jewish calendar is lunisolar, which means that our holidays shift a little bit every year. But the best time is when we get Hanukkah and Christmas on the same day, because they're at their core, right? If you take away the sort of like stories that we've made up
Right.
as religions to like tell ourselves why we celebrate the holidays at their core are about togetherness and light and warmth in the dark, cold time.
Yeah.
And I think that's so fucking cool.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love the connection to the natural world, and I think that was a lot of what was really missing from, my Christian practices was, like, it was a lot of
Yeah.
community talk, it was a lot of, like, individually what you have to do and, like, don't be a sinner and all these things. But, like, that has been such a larger focus in terms of how I practice spirituality as an adult in my, like, witchcraft, right? So you were talking earlier, and it's so funny because I was thinking about this of like, what does spirituality and what does religion mean to me, and what does it look like? What are the tenets? What do I practice, right? And you were going through the deep connection with who was this? Casper I'm sorry, how do I say that?
Casper ter Kyle.
Casper ter Kuile
Ter
saying
Kyle.
ter Kuile, got it.
Yeah.
Casper ter Kuile saying that religion is like a deep connection with yourself, the people around you, the natural world, the transcendent, which I think is
Yeah.
that's awesome. And the way that I practice and what religion and spirituality means to me as an adult is reflection, gratitude, uh connection to the natural world, and guidance and like seeking guidance, right? Um
Mhm.
which is I feel like so close to what he has described. And it was so funny because I was thinking about this. I was like, I feel like this is like again, this is like pretty individual to me. Nope, never had an individual experience in my entire life. Like
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's
and,
kind
like,
of
this is one
comforting,
of the
though.
things. It is comforting, and, like,
Yeah.
that's the comfort that people get from spirituality. I really didn't understand this for a lot of my life, and then as an adult, when life gets lonelier, you start to understand that, like, oh, one of the points of spirituality is to remind us that we are connected to other people, and
Yeah,
we're not
community.
having these, like, special individual experiences all by ourselves, that,
Yeah.
like, most of our experiences are experiences that other people have had, and, like, that takes away the loneliness and the existential sadness of being alive, just
Yeah.
to remember that you are connected.
Yeah, and, like, getting together with people, even the practice of, like, mass and temple and, like, covens, like, all of
Yes.
that involves, like, just spending time with other people, either in
Yes.
worship, in song, like, in, like, protecting each other, confiding in each other, like, that I think is so important, especially now, and I think it's why, like, so many people have even though there are so many people that are unsubscribing from Christianity and from major religions, but also there are people that are getting further into it and like further
Yeah.
entrenched in it is because that's one of the few places where you can just like show up for free and not have to pay like a subscription fee or an entrance fee or anything to just be with people and commune with people and connect with people. That in itself can be such a beautiful thing. And I think it sucks that it has become so limited to very specific groups, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanna go to a coven meeting in the woods where I can fucking sing songs and, like, dance naked and, like, around a bonfire, like, that sounds sick, but you can't, like, have, like, a
Yeah.
you can't have, like, a Facebook group where I mean, I guess you could, but, like, I
You could.
I don't
Have you looked to see if there are covens in your area?
I don't have a Facebook, so no, but
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind. Fuck that. But you could. I'm just saying, like, you could.
Yeah.
For me, like the navigating finding spiritual space recently has been like, where can I go to worship with other Jews who agree with me that Israel is doing genocide? You
Yeah.
know, having done a lot of research and looked into it, I've found a lot of really wonderful anti-Zionist Jewish spaces that are doing like great organizing work, and like genuinely sort of helping people in addition to engaging in spiritual practice, which actually like is a central tenet of Judaism, which I feel like people don't talk about a lot. um it's this sort of idea that like the world is fundamentally broken, and part of your job while you live in the world is to heal, to do the process of repair. We call this tikkun olam, and it's like a very important Jewish principle that I personally feel like a lot of Jews are forgetting. And this pisses me off, and I have a whole soapbox about it. But hanging out with fellow Jews who are really committed to justice, in addition to being together and chanting prayer together, it has been so meaningful for me over the past, certainly over the past year, but like over the past several years. It's been like incredibly important.
I love that. Yeah. I'm not even joking because I talked to some of my friends who are not like are not practicing witches but are interested in witchcraft, and I was like, maybe I'll just start my own. Fine, I'll do it myself.
Yes!
Like, so
I will join your coven. I
okay,
want to
great.
go dance in the woods.
Love.
I would drive to where you are to go dance in the woods.
Perfect. The next time you come visit, that'll happen.
Yes! Oh my god.
Yeah,
I love
so
this for us.
yeah, but that is also like that has been a real goal of mine in the new year of like I want to focus more on my spirituality and my craft because I feel like this year I haven't spent a lot of time really dedicated to it until October came around, and then I got really excited because I love October and I felt
Yeah.
revitalized in my practice. But I get this from other witches as well, where you get in like a funk, and I feel like this is similar for like anyone practicing any
Yeah.
kind of religion or spirituality, where like sometimes you get in a funk and you slip a little bit, and that's okay and that's natural because you're human and you're a person. I feel so good when I'm doing it, and it makes me so happy just like having those little rituals and that time for myself.
Yeah.
I should be doing it because it's enriching my life, like it makes me happy and it makes the people around me happy. And I made for Christmas this year, I made protection candles. So
Aw.
I made, and Shem helped me as well, where we did black candles for which are for protection. And then we added in some herbs and all sorts of stuff. And then because he's a rune guy, he loves like Norse mythos and such,
Mhm.
which can be a red flag for white guys. But he's also a researcher, and he double triple checks everything
Yeah.
to make sure it's all it's good gravy. But he he uh he carved like a really nice rune into it with like a ceremonial like knife that he has, and it was just like a really nice like
Aw.
practice that like we had together. We had like Great British Bake Off in the background while we were like melting the candles and like
That
putting it all
sounds
together.
so nice.
It
That sounds
was
so lovely.
it was so beautiful, and like obviously like you add your intentions in, and good energy, protect my friends, blah blah blah. And it was just such a nice little thing that like we did together, and we're like making these things for our friends, that I was like, oh, this is so nice. This is so nice. But I mean, like again, I'm very I love my craft. I love what I do. I still say things like God forbid. Like I was raised by some really loud Italian Catholic women who's always say God forbid. Stop that. God forbid. Don't say that. God forbid. So that is still very much entrenched in me. I love like rosaries. Again, I don't pray on them really anymore, but I am comforted by their presence, where like if I go on like a long plane ride or something, I'll bring like my rosary in my bag with me. So there's like little things where like
Mhm.
I've kept with me. When I went to mass every Sunday, all my fellow Catholics out there, I love incense so much, which is in across multiple cultural practices as well. But like the smell of incense during mass was always so comforting to me. So like when I moved away from the church, I was like, there were things that were sort of missing. I was like, oh, you know what? I could just buy incense, like and like have that like peace that I got when I was a kid, like smelling it in
Yeah.
the pews, like in my home. Obviously,
Mhm.
again, lighting candles and like all of those things, like there are a lot of like witchy practices in Catholicism as well, which is like,
Yes.
drinking the blood of Christ.
Catholicism.
Like it's so like it's like this is
This
some
is
culty shit.
I love talking to Catholics
Yeah,
because Catholicism, sort of uniquely among Jesus worshiping religious traditions, is very ritualistic.
very.
Um,
Oh, so much
and
so.
Judaism is also very
Yeah,
ritualistic. We have these like really elaborate rituals that involve like tasting things and smelling things. And
yeah.
it basically, like, Passover is basically just like a sensory story meal. Like, that's what it is.
I love
Um,
that.
and
That's
it
the
it
way that you've
reminds
described that.
me in so many, yes, because
Yep.
it reminds me a lot of, like, hearing about what communion is like, and I just,
Yep.
those, like, part of the reason that I feel like those very sensory elements find their way into religious tradition is because they connect us to our bodies and to the earth.
Yeah.
and like people deep down know that that's really important to getting human buy-in.
Mhm.
And I love that you've decided to own incense and like
Yeah.
rosaries as part of your hybrid spiritual tradition. I just think that's so like those are parts of you. They're part
Yeah.
of your upbringing and like that can be you can reform that into your craft and I just oh, so sick. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So there's little sprinklings of things, but I still like Shem always laughs at me whenever I say God forbid. I'm like when he like he'll say something like for I think it's pretty clear how to use it, but like whenever you say something bad that might happen or like if you like make a joke about something like really bad happening or whatever, like you say God forbid because you don't want that to happen. God forbid it, right?
Yeah.
Um but he laughs at me when I say that because I'm always like it's like an instinct. It's like a tick a little bit like
Yeah.
um but
Like you can't help
I
yourself.
can't help it, I said it for so many years, I still say it, my family still
Oh my
says it,
god.
it's, like, deeply entrenched in the language that I grew up with. So, yeah, I do look at that fondly, and, you know, like, I have family members, like I said, that, like, either work in the church or they do the music or, you know, my mom in particular is, like, very involved, and I think she feels some grief that I'm not, like, practicing anymore, and, you know, that, like, sadness that she can't really connect with me on that anymore. But I do think she understands. You know, her and I have had a lot of long conversations about how the church and what the church has done as an institution, it just doesn't I don't agree with. And for her, it's very much a she doesn't I don't think has that baggage. She doesn't really have that like she's able to separate it where this has been a
Right.
part of her life and she hasn't really had to reckon with the institution until I and my sister really like talked to her about it. So we sort of saw it as this thing that was like, maybe I don't want to be associated with this and I still have time to get out essentially like this hasn't become part of like who I am as a person yet, fully at least. But with her, it's like she was, you know, she was the same. She went to Catholic school. She, you know, 12 years of Catholic school. She, you know, did it all growing up. Like she's been a Eucharistic minister, which is like where she gives out the Eucharist and the blood of Christ and stuff. So
Okay.
she's like done all those things. She's, you know, we used to go on weekends to do the flowers, like for to change the church for different seasons. Like she's always been very involved, and for her, that's been a very enriching aspect of her life. It's brought a lot of peace, it's brought a lot of community, and, like, I love those aspects of what Catholicism, what Christianity has done for my mother because it has enriched her life so very much, and she's had to
Yep.
leave certain churches because she's like, "Things are getting too toxic here, things are getting too much," you know? But I don't know, I love my mother, and I think she is if if all Christians and all Catholics were practiced in the way and were like my mother, I think I would probably still be a part of the church. Like this is how much like
Yeah.
she focuses on the love, she focuses on the community, she focuses on giving and reflection. Like we volunteered at like, you know, different food banks and stuff growing up, like all of those things. It's still very important to her because I think she's still kind of chooses to see those aspects of Christianity as like the main part of her practice. And for me, I
Mhm.
don't know that I can totally separate the institution from the good stuff,
Yep.
which is why I stepped away. But I admire my mother and I'm glad that this is like that she has that because well, again, feel like what I get from my practice, she gets from hers. And as long as it's like enriching her life, I'm happy for her and I'm glad that she's doing it.
I think that's beautiful. Oh,
Thank you.
I think it is, and it's like part of what's hard about generational differences and like seeing your parents negotiate a very different values and a different
Yeah.
reality from your reality. And then having to have the hard conversation of I know that this is the way you are, and I know that it's important to you, and I can't be that way. I
Mhm.
just can't. My father and I had to have that conversation last year about you know how we feel differently about Israel. And it's a continual conversation and I love my father and I respect how much his perspective is informed by the trauma of his childhood and the trauma that his parents went through and I don't believe the same things that he believes and I can't ever. And I feel like that isn't an original experience either. You
Yeah.
know, it's just maybe not an experience that people are talking about openly so much. But I feel like it's important to talk about it openly because of the way that like religion and spirituality get mobilized by very violent institutions to
Mhm.
do bad things, and how part of the decision to to be a spiritual person is to identify like what aspects of that feel enriching to you and what aspects you want to get fucking as far away from as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
um you know, and I just, my heart bleeds when I think about the way that Judaism and anti-Semitism are being like mobilized as discourses by the Israeli government to justify what's happening in Palestine. It makes me feel sick to my fucking stomach. And it's also really forced me to identify like which elements of Jewish practice and Jewish community feel important to me and like what I can hold on to. And like it really honestly has lit a fire under my ass to be the self-hating Jew that people love to hate on so much, and to be the person who's like, yeah, this is fucked up, and I am going to, you know, like wear my prayer shawl to a protest, and I just like I am going to be in your face with who I am and what I believe, because I can't be any other way.
I love that, and I love you, and I love that about you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, yeah, it's tough. It's tough because you know, we come on this earth and we are raised to believe very specific tenets and specific things at a young age. When we're children, we're sponges and we just sort of soak up whatever we see as truth. And these religions have so much history and so many years before us that are heavy and tumultuous and drenched in blood sometimes. Like it can get really messy and complicated. And you know, I don't want to tell anyone how to live their life, but it's at the very least just acknowledging and reckoning with that history, I think is super important, especially if you're Christian, because like, you know, we're responsible for a lot of that. We're responsible for a lot of that. And you know, you can still enjoy and you can still practice aspects of it that means that are important to you and mean something to you. I feel like it's your responsibility to kind of reckon with that and understand that like,
Mhm.
you know, people have done some really horrible things in the name of Jesus Christ. And the hypocrisy in Christianity is something that we still see today. And people that claim to live and die by the teachings of Jesus eh, don't always do that.
Yeah.
You know, Jesus loved sex workers. Some of his best friends were sex workers, and you know, he loved the disabled community. Like he supported the poor. Like he was the one who said that if you're a rich person, you can't get into heaven. If you're a practicing Christian, if you are practicing any religion, and someone who claims to represent your religion is saying things to make you angry, maybe, and we talk about this on on so many episodes of like if someone is saying something that is making you really angry, maybe do a little digging as to why they might say those things, if those things are even true, where that might be coming from, etc., etc.
Yeah, religious discourses are powerful and emotional,
Mm-hmm.
and
Personal.
if personal,
Yeah.
and if you're tilted, do some digging.
Yeah. Welcome to the Unserious Corner. This is the unresearched, purely based on vibes corner that we like to do after our serious discussions. I want to talk about what you are going to focus on the new year, on in the
Mm,
new year. Not necessarily like New Year's resolutions, but just sort of like a broadly scoping topic or whatever you're going to focus on.
I love this. I love this. Okay, number one thing that I would like to work on. And this is okay. So I will say that like I actually don't observe the Roman calendar New Year in
No,
quite
I
the
don't
same way
either.
as most people because my New Year happens at the Jewish New Year, which is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur.
Love.
And so I had this like profound moment of spiritual reflection a couple months ago, and I'm like into this. I'm a little bit into this journey, but the things that I'm really focusing on um, include like my listening to my own sense of no, listening to my
Mm.
own no. And that is something that I've been working on for a long time. And over last year, I didn't do such a good job. And so this year, I'm really trying to reattune myself to like finding the line because I'm in a growth moment in my life. I'm trying a lot of new things. I'm sort of starting a big new career. I'm making a huge, career transition this year with the start of a PhD program. One thing that I really need to be attuned to is like not pushing myself too hard as I'm trying to do all this new stuff. And in order to not push myself too hard, I really have to listen to like when my body is tired, when my soul is tired, when I need to rest. And that's so hard for me. It
Yeah.
really has been like a whole ass process. And I've done a lot of spiritual work. I've prayed on it. And I have like a ritual candle that I got to make when I went to Salem over the summer. You would have
Oh,
loved
love.
this.
Oh my
It
god,
was so
yeah.
cool. I made a ritual candle designed for me to sort of like meditate on finding the line. Like where is the line? Where is the point where I'm
I
not willing to
love
do
that.
anymore? And it's been a very helpful sort of like meditative focus object for me. But that's the number one thing that I've been working on and want to keep working on is like finding the line. And then the other thing that I want to do is like remember and like find times to like be really playful and like just have fun. Because when you're
I
working
love
really
that for
hard,
you so
you
much.
need to be really playful and have fun. And like the irony for me is that like a lot of my research focuses on like play and games in online spaces. And what kind of play researcher would I be if I didn't also like create my own sort of separate space for me to have fun and to play and
Yeah.
to not be so serious about everything all the time? Concentrating resources towards that. And then the third thing is like really showing up in the relationships that I have, really showing up for my family and for my partner, not being so anxious about what will happen in those relationships, but like working instead on being present. So hard to be present. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Those
Oh,
are
so
those are
hard.
beautiful.
Those are my
I
things.
love
What about
that.
you?
Oh my god. Well, the first one I have is read more books, so I feel like you really, like
Woo!
you're like, "I
Yay!
need to be present in my relationships." I'm like, "I need to read. I need to get offline and fucking read something real. I need to touch grass and I need to read." No, that's beautiful. I just like which is such a basic thing, but like we're not knocking basic here, but I'm just like I it seems very unimaginative, but what I want to do is like I have been doing so much writing this year. Like this is this year in 2024, I have written more this year than I think I when I ever did in school. But also just like so much than I have I think since like COVID, combining like 2020 to like 2023, I feel like I wrote more in 2024 than I
Mm,
did in those 3 years.
wow.
I'm and flex. But
I
like
mean, same, honestly. Now that I'm thinking about
yeah.
it, I'm like, oh yeah, I did do an obscene amount of writing this
Yeah.
year.
I mean, you're writing a thesis. Yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome. Um
It is crazy,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. But just like with my video scripting my videos, a lot of like long form projects that I've been doing, but also like I've been writing my own like fictional projects as well, which has been so fun and so rewarding and so beautiful that I feel like I wanna keep writing, but I'm getting sick of my own writing. Like, I need to read
Mm,
something else, and, like, you were telling me I've had so many friends tell me about Locked Tomb where I'm like, "I need to engage with this piece of media." I need to get some fresh fiction in my brain because, I'm sure many of you out there who are writers, you get in the process of seeing these characters over and over and over again, and it can become a little stale on the page where you're like, I have spent so much time with these characters, and They're the only things that I think about, and they're my little blorbos, and I love them. But also, like, you hit a wall, either creative blocks or you run out of ideas or something like that. I was working on this project and I was trying to figure out this one scene for like over a month. I would sit down and I would just like be at my computer and I would write a couple sentences and I'd be like, "Oh god, this sucks." And then I would leave. And then one of my friends, one of my dear, lovely, wonderful, talented friends who is a DM for one of my D&D campaigns, she sent me the most beautiful heartbreaking poem ever and that she had written. She was like, "Is this any good?" And I was like sobbing. I was like, "It's beautiful." And literally after reading that poem, it was like something like a switch in my brain, like just reading with something else or engaging with something else. It inspired me so much that I finally finished that fucking scene that I was working on for an hour and a half, and I wrote like 5 pages. And I was like, "This is
Oh,
great. This is what I needed." So I think I just need to make that a like more regular practice for myself, just like for enjoyment, of course. Like love to like read for enjoyment, but also like to become a better writer, to not get bogged down with art block or creative blocks, and to learn more, like just to learn more as well. Like I want to read The Locked
yeah.
Tomb. I have a couple books that Earth has sent me as well that I do also want to read. That fandom book in particular I've been making my way through, which is great. I'm very excited. So yeah, I want to read more for myself and for my creative output. Want to improve my spellcraft. We've talked about that a little bit already. And this is sort of like a goal over the next 4 years. I want to focus my efforts and my content on my Happy Pancake YouTube channel to debunking misinformation over the next 4 years, which I'm sure we are going to get a lot of, unfortunately. But that has been
Mhm.
like that's like a goal of mine. Is like I want to focus on misinformation and debunking that and you know breaking that down and hopefully some good coming out of that. You talked about
That's
how
so badass.
thank you. Um, you talked about how when is the Jewish New Year? Is it you said Yom Kippur.
It moves every year,
Right.
but it basically so, like, it's this window of time that starts on Rosh Hashanah, which is technically the Jewish New Year, like, that's what that holiday is,
Yeah.
and then there's, like, a 10-day period of time during which you're supposed to sort of, like, pray and reflect and think about, all the things that have happened over the past year and what will happen in the year. The sort of spiritual convention, right, is that the book of life is opened on Rosh Hashanah. And so God is sort of like thinking about you and thinking about your deeds and all the things that you've done. And then you have 10 days to like be your best little blorbo before it closes again on Yom Kippur.
Okay, good.
And Yom Kippur is this holiday where you're supposed to sort of like think about the things that you've done that you're not so proud of and ask for forgiveness from yourself and from the divine and from one another. And so it's this like highly ritualized chunk of time that happens usually in like September, October that for me has sort of like replaced the new year convention of like thinking about resolutions because it is such a ritualized way of thinking about like what kind of person have I been and what kind of person would I like to be differently.
Yeah.
And I think it's so meaningful for me. And it's also nice. I love this time of year because I get to connect on that level with lots of people who don't have that convention in September, October. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I love knowing what inspires and motivates everybody.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah.
That's awesome. The like pagan New Year is also in September, October, where Samhain is the
Ah, yeah.
That's so funny.
Fascinating.
Isn't that interesting?
That's so interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah, what a wild kind of because it's like it's the start of the dying that happens.
Right. It's
Autumn is
end of
like a season
harvest.
of
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
Right, it's the end of the harvest, it's the start of everything slowing down for winter, and so it's interesting that there's sort of like a reflection ritual that happens
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. That's
So
That's
fascinating.
so interesting. I didn't know that that was the Jewish New Year too. A more crossover.
Mhm.
We love to see it. We love to see
We
it.
do. We love to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've started that as well where like I see Samhain as like the new year because I feel so
Mhm.
much more revitalized in October. Like just as a personal
Yeah.
thing, like I
Mhm.
am not a summer person. I am pasty white, and I get heat stroke super easily. I'm a little waif. I'm a little tiny just widowy, just a
You're an
girl.
autumn. You
I'm an
blossom
autumn
in the
I'm
autumn.
an autumn bitch. I am an autumn bitch.
Yeah.
And when summer is over, it is when I feel most alive. I love autumn so much, and I feel revitalized in myself. I feel a new energy. I feel excited because I love to do all the autumn things as well. And I've
Mhm.
started these past couple years sort of like seeing that as like my new year. Favorite winter drink?
Ooh, this is an interesting one. So, in recent years, I have like very decentered my relationship to alcohol because my body is
Yeah,
weak
same.
and can't process it. And that's like a little bit of a bummer because everyone is enjoying these festive holiday cocktails and I have to find an alternative. But what my mom and I have started doing on Christmas Eve that I really enjoy is making virgin cranberry mojitos,
Oh,
which
oh
is
my god.
so
Send me
good.
the
It's so good.
recipe.
I will. Usually we just make it up, but like what it is it's like the things that normally go in a mojito, so like seltzer, mint, lime juice, and sweetener,
Right.
and then a little bit of like cranberry simple syrup for the sweetener.
Oh,
And it's so good.
I
It's
love
so
that.
so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like that's my favorite winter drink, I think. And it's also nice because my mom and I make it together, and so it's like
Yeah.
special.
That's
What
so
about
cute.
you?
Oh, for me, it's hot chocolate with some whipped cream, baby. Just
Oh,
real simple pleasures.
see, I didn't even think about hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate so much.
I I love apple cider and I love hot chocolate. They're my two like favorite drinks in the entire world. I could have them at any point, truly. And I have so many
Yes.
like that's another one where I have so many memories attached to it of like being a little kid going like sledding and then coming inside
Mhm.
and then like mom has hot chocolate made. Like it's just like and all like
Yeah.
my s-
Oh.
yeah, and like my sister as well. Like my sister's chronically ill and there are a lot of things that she can't eat, but hot chocolate is one of those things that has lasted through the years. And like every time around Christmas that I'm home, I always make her a hot chocolate, and she's always so excited about it because like whipped cream in particular, whipped cream and hot chocolate is like one of her favorite things. So yeah, I have a lot of fond memories attached to it. It's just a nice wholesome drink. Also, if you really want to like level up your hot chocolate game, and if you're like, okay, I got the Swiss Miss packets, whatever, fine. Because you can do this like real simple. So, like Swiss Miss, hot water, but then also add like a healthy dollop of Hershey's chocolate syrup and mixing that in.
Mhm.
It mixes in
Yeah.
beautifully and it just adds that extra like chocolate punch. Because, like, obviously, we're not going to make hot chocolate from scratch every time. We're going to use the Swiss Miss packets every so often. That's a nice way to just like affordable, delicious, just level up your
Elevates
hot chocolate.
it.
Elevate set, yeah. And then like, the bottle of like Hershey's chocolate syrup is like $3 or something. Or
Oh,
whatever. You can add like caramel or whatever the fuck you want to add in, but I don't.
peppermint, put a
Oh
candy
yeah,
cane in there.
peppermint.
I love for me, this is one of my favorite things about the Christmas season is
Tell
that the
me.
peppermint chocolate combo is to me such an elite flavor combination. It's like one of my favorite fucking
It's
things.
so good.
And it's everywhere. And Trader Joe's has the candy cane JoJo's, which are the best
I have to
ones.
look this up. Keep talking.
Have you had oh my god. Okay, so JoJo's is like the Trader Joe's brand of Oreos, but it's basically it's like a peppermint Oreo and then they dip it in chocolate and cover it in crushed candy cane bits. And it's the best cookie and they only have it's seasonally,
Oh
and it's
wow.
so good. It's so good and they have an ice cream flavor that's pretty good too. Oh, the peppermint JoJo's. But you
That
got to get the
sounds
ones that are dipped
delightful.
in chocolate cuz they're better. They
Well,
just are
yeah.
better.
Duh. Uh, obviously, given the choice, you know what I'm picking every
And
time.
I forget every year that this is an option, and then I go into a Trader Joe's at some point in late November, early December, and I remember that the peppermint JoJo's are back.
Yeah. Chocolate
It's amazing.
chocolate and peppermint at Christmas time is great. We have a chocolate mint bars recipe from my
Oh,
grandmother that I've they were my favorite recipe as a kid. So basically, let me just paint a picture. It is essentially the fudgiest, richest brownies you have ever had in your entire life. And then on top of that is a layer of like mint frosting. And then on top of that is, like, melted chocolate, which you put in the fridge, and then it, like, hardens on the top.
Oh my
So,
god.
they're about this thick, and it's like brownie, and then, like, frosting, and then, like, a little thin layer of, like, chocolate on top. They were my favorite as a kid. I would literally eat, like, half of the tray. They were so unbelievably rich. It's basically butter, chocolate, sugar, like, so good.
That sounds like the best thing.
It's the most delicious thing ever, and, they were my grandmother's recipe, and she is no longer with us, but I make them every single year, and my grandfather comes out, and it's like a nice little thing that I get to do for him every
Aw,
year, 'cause he lives in Minnesota, so I really
so
only get to see him at Christmas time.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice. I love him, I adore my grandfather. He's coming out next week, I'm so excited. He's, like, the coolest. He has, like, a PhD in music, he's traveled around the world, he, like, is just such a
Wow.
he's this, like, eccentric grandpa, like, he's wonderful. He loves wine and cheese and, like, he's very, very liberal, like, he's just, like, he's great.
Oh,
I I adore
he
him.
sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
he's the best.
Also, I want that recipe. That sounds so good.
It's literally so
Will you
good.
send it to
I
me?
can send it to you. It's so intense. It's but it's really good. Um, it
Yay!
does take me, like, 3.5 hours to make, but it's awesome. Yeah, so whenever he comes out, it's a really nice it's a nice little thing I get to do for him, and he enjoys it every time, and he and I are always the ones that eat the most of it too, so it's, like, a nice little thing we
Mm.
get to do. I literally forgot about that. I'm like, "Oh, I get to make mint bars soon." Uh Okay, favorite holiday movie and or song? Because I know you have talked about
Ooh,
how you
okay.
love Christmas movies, and I am not. I'm a little bit of a
I
humbug when it
do.
comes to Christmas movies.
I love Christmas movies and I love Christmas music. The irony about Christmas movies and Christmas music is that a lot of them were creatively like helmed by Jews, which is
Oh,
a thing
really?
I feel like a lot of people don't know. Yeah, Irving Berlin is a Jew.
Oh my
Uh
god, I'm not even joking, White Christmas is my favorite Christmas movie.
Yep, Jewish
Wow.
guy.
That's
Jewish
so
guy behind
crazy.
all of that. A lot of Christmas music that we think of as like classic American Christmas music was written by Jews.
Interesting.
So this is
Wow.
this is kind of like a funny untold story. I think my favorite Christmas movie honestly is It's a Wonderful Life.
I knew you were gonna say
Um
that.
yeah, I really will, and it's like for several
It's
reasons.
a
First
classic.
of all, I was talking about this I think last episode, but like I love the convention of like how knowing how your presence makes the world better is
Mhm.
such a beautiful narrative convention for a movie. It's a Wonderful Life is so long, but it is like every second of it is necessary, and also Jimmy Stewart is, I think, at his most attractive in this movie. I love Jimmy Stewart. I find him so charming,
Yeah.
and
I would agree with that.
he's a very he comes across as like such a real human with just like a really high charisma score, but he doesn't act like an asshole
He's
about
not a
it.
dickhead, yeah.
Right, and I love It's a Wonderful Life. I really do. It makes me feel feelings
Yeah.
about, connectedness to other people. Also, honorable mention shout out to Muppet Christmas Carol because
Cool. Another
that
classic.
is the best adaptation of Christmas Carol. What other movie gives you Jesus for Us Mises and Dickens all in the same singing fruit, it's a masterpiece on so many levels.
I love it.
I have a stupid story about a Christmas song. It's not my favorite Christmas song, but I thought that as someone who was
Please do.
raised Catholic, you would appreciate this.
Tell me.
So, my parents had this like really amazing choral CD that my mom would play because my mom loves choral music. And I grew up singing in choir, so I love choral music too. And one of the first songs on the CD is a rendition of For Unto Us a Child is Born.
Mhm.
Uh, and I thought for an embarrassingly long amount of time that they were singing to a person whose name was Unto Us.
Oh,
Born unto us, a child is born.
I love that. That's such a classic, like, little
That's
kid
enough.
thing, like, I
But like
love it.
embarrassingly, like into my early teens, I was like, yes, it's a person whose name is Unto Us.
If
Oh
it
wait,
makes you
hang on.
if it makes you feel any better, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I sang 80% of Green Day's songs incorrectly until I was, like, a teenager.
Yeah,
Like, I'm pretty
yeah,
like
but this is like but the irony of it being biblical liturgy, which, like,
Yeah,
everyone
yeah.
should understand, and I didn't know, I was not raised with biblical liturgy, so I
Yeah.
thought unto us as a person. It's sort of the same way that, like, in one of the Charlie Brown Christmas specials, they have to do a Christmas play, and Sally thinks that Harold is the name of the angel
Oh,
in
right.
Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
Yes! I love it.
So, again, I've never had an original experience
That's so funny.
because I
Oh,
love Charlie Brown.
that's my mom's favorite. My mom loves Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown Christmas is, like, her
Yeah.
favorite Christmas movie ever. She loves Charlie Brown because she grew up super poor, and, Charlie Brown
Yeah.
was one of the few Christmas specials that was on, like, TV that everybody had. So every year she would, like,
Yeah.
huddle around, for Halloween, for Christmas, and for Easter. She would huddle around the TV with her and her brother, and they would watch, the Charlie Brown Christmas or specials or
Mm.
various holiday specials together.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're so good. The Charlie Brown holiday specials honestly left a larger cultural impact on my sense of, like, Christian holidays than most other cultural artifacts. Snoopy as the Easter Beagle is sort of
Yes.
canonical. I think we
Classic.
always referred to the Easter Bunny as the Easter Beagle in my house growing up
Love.
because that was such a brilliant
Yeah, that's a good
thing.
one. It's so good. It's and then my mom got super pissed when the family sold the stories to Apple. So now they're like only available on Apple Music and they don't broadcast them live anymore. And my mom got really
Horrible.
upset about that because she was like, "What about all the little kids that don't have like Apple and like need to like?" I'm like, "You're right. You're right. When you're right, you're right." Yeah. So
No,
that's really
she's
fucked up
so
they did that.
right.
Favorite Christmas holiday movie? I love White Christmas. I think mostly because it almost has nothing to do with Christmas, and there's a lot of musical theater and there's a lot of dancing, which I deeply enjoy. Everyone talks about the
Yeah.
sisters number, which is very iconic with the big fans, and I agree that's very iconic and we love that.
Yep.
But the scene where Phil and Judy are dancing together in Florida,
Yep.
I remember watching that as a little kid and being absolutely mesmerized by that dance. And every year, we actually play that movie every year at my parents' house when we decorate the tree together. So that's like a nice little
Mhm.
tradition that we have is watching that movie while we decorate the tree. Every single time that I see that dance sequence, I'm sat in front of the TV like I'm 5 years old again, watching it because I am just, oh my gosh, the talent on like some of those actors is just unreal. So yeah, I love White Christmas for the theater of it, and there's a heartwarming story as well. I don't know what my favorite Christmas song would be. I love We Three Kings. I think that's a really beautiful Christmas
Yes.
song. Yeah.
So
Tell me.
on the same album, this is the same choral album, they have like a really rockin' version of We Three Kings that's got like a
Oh
beat to it. And
shit.
my dad and my sister have this dance out. I will send you the version of this song because
Please.
it's so like 80s, 90s. It's got
Yeah.
this really long, kind of drawn out saxophone opening. And then
Slay.
the beat drops and it's We Three Kings. My dad and my sister have like a dance that they do to this song every year.
Oh, that's so
They
cute.
sort of march around the house and they do, and it's beautiful
That's so
and
cute.
so stupid
That's
and
so
so beautiful.
I
So
love
every time I think about We Three Kings, I think about my dad doing dad dancing.
dad dancing is elite. My dad also has a dad dance. What does your
Yep.
dad's dance look like? My dad, when he dances,
It's like,
he does this.
oh no, it's like how do I have to like get up. Hang on. I have to do a dramatic. This will, if you're just listening to the audio, this will do nothing for you. But it's like
Yeah.
it's like a,
Oh, there we go. There we go. Oh, that's excellent. I'm so glad we've immortalized that.
oh, me too.
That's incredible. I love. I love that one. There's also another one called Run Rudolph Run. Run Rudolph Run. And
Love.
it's like a greaser type like it sounds
Yep.
like, yeah, it's like that era. That one's pretty fun. Yeah, but and then, Nightmare Before Christmas, I feel like that vaguely counts as a Christmas movie as well, but I'm sure you're all
Yeah.
shocked.
Yeah. Run Rudolph Run is Chuck Berry. It's like
Yes.
there are a couple of like really iconic black contributions to Christmas music, and Chuck Berry on Run Rudolph Run is
I
one of them.
love Run, Run, Rudolph, Run.
Um
So good.
and Hollis by Run DMC there's a great bit on the most recent season of Abbott Elementary about Christmas in Hollis that is just
Oh my
so
god, I
fucking
need to
funny.
catch up on Abbott Elementary. I love
Oh,
Abbott Elementary. Oh, also, I don't know if you know this, the woman that plays Barbara Howard, Cheryl Lee Ralph, performed a song on the Arcane soundtrack, and it's my favorite fucking song. It's so
I did
good.
know that. I've seen some red carpet
Yes,
interviews with her at the like Arcane League of Legends stuff, and she's just
she's such an
the
icon.
most. She's such a dramatic human being. I love her.
Yeah, she's such a diva. I
I
when
love
she
her.
when she speaks, I'm like, I'm sat. I'm here for every single word.
Mhm.
Cheryl, I love her. Oh,
Mhm. For this supporting character Lovefest, we have each selected a character that we feel like is kind of a cool spiritual supporting character. Skullie, who did you pick?
so I have been watching this it's not a new show. When I introduce it, it's new to me.
Yes.
It's called A Discovery of Witches. I think it was first like released in like 2018. So, and it had like a couple seasons. So
Mhm.
it recent-er. Um, but uh it's about this witch, and she basically goes through the process of discovering her powers at a very, very late age. And it is very like the show in itself is very spiritual in that she has to like reckon with the fact that she grew up without powers and she thought she was like weird and different, but something happened to her that kept her from realizing her full power. And basically, she like these powers come out of nowhere. They're very volatile. They're very dangerous. She has to figure out control, and she has to rediscover kind of who she is and how she identifies with herself and with her culture and
Mm.
with her family and all of these things. So I'm really loving it. I think if you are someone who loves like witchy projects, and there's also like a really good romance as well, like I very much enjoy it. It's like everything that people loved about Twilight, but I feel like it's done without all the like problematic aspects of it. I
Yeah.
certainly have critiques still, but like this woman, she like, falls in love with a vampire, but she's also like a fully realized adult who has like a PhD and like is very independent and like all these
Yeah.
things. So it's like,
That's right.
yeah, it's I've enjoyed it. That's all to say. The aunt in the show, so one of the aunts that she was raised by, she was raised by her aunt Sarah and her wife Emily. And Aunt Sarah is me, I fear. She she helps Diana, who's the main character, on her like spiritual journey and like relearning witchcraft from scratch. But she is also someone who is so deeply fueled by how much she cares for her loved ones. Like that is like how she guides her life is like I care for these people, what can I do to help them? And if something happens to them, who do I need to murder basically? So very much for better or for worse. And she is very passionate, and she is very strong, and she is very very spiritual and very grounded, but she has this like fire in her that I just adore and I identify with. And her wife Emily is like very patient and very kind, and she's also very spiritual. So like throughout the show she scries on Diana to like see if there's any dangers, and you see like her scrying ritual, which is like also very cool. But I was watching this with Shem, and it's these like Aunt Sarah and Aunt Emily are these two lesbians who live in the middle of the woods with a bunch of plants and some cats. And I was like,
Yes.
this is our
Oh my
goal.
god.
This is our goal. There was one interaction between them that I was like, this is us, I fear, where like something happened where Diana was endangered, and the mother told Aunt Emily and didn't tell Aunt Sarah because she knew that Aunt Emily would sort of like be in a rage fueled vengeance track to like really hurt this person who hurt her niece. And she told M, and M being very patient and understanding, very kind, and being like, babe, she knows who you are. She knows that you would come after this very powerful person with a knife in hand and try to kill them. I was like,
That's
And I,
so beautiful.
yeah, and she was like, that's the only reason she didn't tell you. And I was on the couch. I was like, Shem, I was like, this is us. I fear. He goes, yes, this is us. I fear. So yeah,
That's
I've
amazing.
watched Discovery of Witches. It's on Netflix. It's great. If you want to learn more about me, just watch what Aunt Sarah does. Pretty much every decision that she's made in that show, I
Mhm.
support and I stand by. I just finished the first season, and I've been really enjoying it.
Okay, good. I remember starting a Discovery of Witches with my mom like a long time ago and really enjoying it. And then I fell off the train and didn't get back on. But this is making me want to revisit it
Yeah,
because
I
it
like it.
sounds great.
It's good.
Yeah. Okay. So for my supporting character today, I have decided to talk about Calypso from Bluey. If you are not a frequent viewer of Bluey, it's it's an Australian children's cartoon about cartoon dogs, and it's sort of about childhood and the games and trials and tribulations of children, but it's also like really about how we become full people and is sort of like designed with millennial parents and teachers in mind, as we foster the next generation. And Calypso is the preschool teacher at Bluey's school. And she is this very grounded character who is sort of like infinitely wise and really good at like weaving together stories to help the children interpret like what's going on with them and sort of gently guiding them towards connectedness with one another and like presence. And she's not an explicitly spiritual character, but I think all of these things like make her kind of a spiritual leader. And like honestly, I think that's what good preschool teachers are. Their whole job is to teach little tiny people how to be people. And that's
Yeah.
so hard. And so much of that work is like helping them understand big, scary concepts like change and loss and joy and like what makes a joyful connected moment. How do you relate to other people to enrich your own life? And like that's what preschool teachers are shepherding kids towards doing. And like Calypso, there's this really awesome sort of moving episode where there's an episode where the preschool class gets visits from their like 13-14-year-old buddy, and Bluey and her friend Mackenzie are kind of left alone by their buddies and not understanding what's going on. And Calypso tells them a story about there were children. There were two children just like you who knew each other when they were 7. And then they were 8 and they were 9. They were 10 and off they go into the world. And things happen when you grow up and you don't really know how that's going to shape you. And the kids sort of are able to see through her story like what life is like for these teenagers who are at a very different part of their childhoods, and they're all able to connect together in this really beautiful way. And Calypso is kind of the story weaver who makes that realization happen. She sort of like serves this role throughout the show.
I love that.
Great vibes. I love Calypso. I love Bluey.
Everybody go
That's
watch
it.
Bluey. Heal your childhood trauma.
Caveat: unless your childhood trauma is too raw this time of year, in which
Oh, well, yeah.
case I would say maybe save Bluey for January.
It'll still be
I had
there.
an experience with a friend who I was showing Bluey, and they were having like a moment where their childhood trauma was really raw, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't think I can handle any more of this right now." And I was like, "You know what?
Oh
That's okay. That's okay,
no.
because like
Yeah.
it hits.
It
It
hits.
hits. The show will bowl you over."
Yeah. It really sneaks up on you too, because I feel like with Bluey in particular, you watch it and you see like a little bit of like where the story's kind of going, and the emotional beats are just like so powerful sometimes, where I'm like, I don't even realize I'm crying, and then I'm like, oh fuck, wait, this actually like this hit deeper than I thought it was going to. Thank you for joining us for today's Yapfest. Please yap about it to all your friends. Until next yap, see you later. Bye.
Bye.